Welcome back to our community. Susie Thomas visiting with Mark Roberts from Out of the Box Solutions. He's the author of the book Branding Backwards and also the blog NoSmokeandMirrors.com. Want to check those out for sure. Also, I like this one, 50 Ugly Truths About Starting Your Own Business and Why You Should Do It Anyway. Another book, also a short book, an
Very
easy
short,
read.
It's an ebook.
But you've got 50 ugly truths that you cover in that. Tell us about some of those and why we should anyway.
Well, just like Branding Backwards was written for someone after they've launched their business, or ideally before, if you could do the homework ahead of time, the reason I wrote the 50 Ugly Truths book was more about the people who come to me and used to come to me with a wrong expectation of what it's like to start a business. So I did some research. At any given time, 6 out of 10 U.S. adults are thinking about starting a business. If you Google the results of people starting businesses, you're going to see a very high failure rate. One of the reasons is they run out of cash, quite simply. It's nothing fancy. They have a false expectation on how fast they're going to ramp up and how quickly the money's going to come in. But the bigger problem that I found was a false expectation of just how hard of work this is. Mm-hmm. I've helped turn companies around. I've worked for private equity firms where they might have one or two companies that are, in a troubling situation financially, and the common denominator was the wrong expectation.
Well, I've always heard when you work for yourself, it's great. You only have to work a half a day, and you get to decide which 12 hours those are. Because you're right, it is more work than anybody really realizes. However, I think everybody should at some point work for themselves because then you think in terms of finished products. You don't just go in and put in your hours and have a paycheck at the end of the week or 2 weeks or month, whatever it happens to be. But you have to think in terms of a finished product before someone is satisfied and you get paid. Do you agree? What's your take on that?
I wholeheartedly agree. It's all about execution. It's not about going through the motions and being busy. It's about producing value and producing a result. And, I like I said in the last discussion, I've been really blessed in my career to have helped a number of companies in all different types of industries. But what it always comes down to is execution.
Mm-hmm. You say your faith has helped you help companies. Talk about that.
I call it my stealth ministry because more often than not, when I first start helping someone, they don't know what I'm doing is biblically based. For example, I'm writing another book, the 8 Biblical Steps on Growing Your Company Profitably.
Wow.
And the very first step is the spirit of truth. How many times does the Bible talk about being truthful? Bringing things into the light of day is one passage. And then once it's in the light of day, it's not nearly as troublesome. The very first step in my process is finding truth. I go out into your market and I conduct something I call, and I've actually named, a value proposition audit. I will go out and I'll talk to your last 10 customers. I'll talk to 5 customers that you tried to win but didn't. And then I'll talk to a few customers you've always wanted. And I have a series of questions where I'll ask them, and then we establish market truth.
What kinds of questions do you cover with them?
How did you find this particular company? I think that's really critical today. More often than not, it's the internet, but a referral. What if it was a newsletter? Why did I pick the church that I go to, First Christian? It's because they had an amazing event on Thanksgiving where we helped feed 10,000 families in Starr County.
Yes.
They were walking the talk. If I was on the board of that church, I would want to know that. So what I do is I go out into the market and I gather truths. Sometimes that is the most difficult step in my entire process. I wrote a post a long time ago, and it said, if you want to add value and increase sales, hire a heretic.
Okay, tell us why.
I usually take the role of heretic. I will come in and I will share with you direct market feedback. If your customers will let me, I'll even record it. And often this is a major interruption to a business, particularly like a family-run business that might have been in business for 50 years, 70 years. What their founder launched the business on was to solve a problem, and they probably did it brilliantly. The trouble is the market changed.
Yes.
Buyers change. How buyers buy has changed. So what I find when I do these truth value proposition audits is minor adjustments that need to be tweaked. And what you'll find is places in the sales process where I call the sale going into the spin cycle. The buyer actually doesn't engage with you. They can't make a decision. Those spin cycle moments are places where you need to create a new tool.
I love what you're saying about family businesses here and these new tools. Let's talk about, because certainly your wealth of information would be helpful to somebody wanting to start something up. But what about that generation of people who have inherited from their fathers, from their fathers, from their fathers, the company business, and are trying to carry it forward, but the world is a very different place? Talk about that.
My heart goes out most to second and third generations. When you look at some of the companies that I've helped, a number of them were second, third generation companies. The difficulty there is not only are you tasked with growing the business and creating security for all your employees and your next generation, but there's an added tension, which is that family member, whether it's now reporting to dad, now reporting to their uncle, the legacy of keeping grandfather or grandmother's business going is another pressure that most of us never feel. So my heart goes out to them, because I think the best thing we could do for second and third generation leaders is treat them just like anyone else in the organization. And that's very difficult to do when you know what their last name is.
Exactly. And in this town, there's only a handful of last names that keep this town running. And yes, it has now, the torch has been passed, and the next generation is carrying on. And you do feel for them, because we can't even fathom the weight that they carry on their shoulders to be providing for all of these families who depend upon them.
And the way I try to serve them is, again, I don't treat them like they're royalty. I don't treat them any way different than I would any other leader in the business. What I want to do, though, is I want to expose them to the same adversity that we feel on the front lines. We talked about, how does the Bible help your business? The Bible doesn't say you might face adversity. The Bible says you will. So what I want to do is, as these second, third generation leaders are coming up through the business, I want to make sure that they have a sense of what that adversity feels like and be a part of solving it.
You're reminding me of the TV program Undercover Boss. What's your take on that? To send somebody into the trenches? That
show is really fun, because what it does is it gives you a small glimpse of what I see. Mm-hmm. It's not unusual for me to go into a family business and I'll ask them, what makes you distinct? What makes you special? Why are you the highest price in your industry, for example? And without missing a beat, the son will look at the father and they'll both wink and they'll say, "'Cause we're special." Okay, well, I appreciate that. What mm-hmm. makes you special? Mm-hmm. Are you doing something proprietary, like one company I helped? Do you have a number of patents that they can only get from you? Is your service really better than everyone else? Because what the market doesn't want to hear, and what you should never find on your website, is it's all about you. In other words, I don't want to hear you're the best. I don't want to hear you have the best quality. If you Google the word gobbledygook, that's what that is. Buyers no longer connect with that. They want to hear how you solve problems for them.
What I hear you saying is, even if your business deals with a product, you are still in the business of service.
Correct.
That's a unique perspective. And I'm thinking maybe those who produce products don't always think in those terms.
No, and unfortunately, a lot of times I'll report to a CEO or a president, and their background typically is they grew up in the business through purchasing, finance, or accounting. As anyone that knows me, my background is I grew up through sales, and then I really wanted to increase my knowledge on marketing, and so I have sales and marketing. Mm-hmm. But it's all about serving. And when I get back to the Bible being the best business book, it's all about serving.
Now, somebody could be hearing you right now and they're saying, our business was not founded on biblical principles, but I would love to infuse them at this stage. Is it ever too late? How would you advise them?
No, I actually believe it's never too late. The quickest way that I found is that value proposition audit. If you don't have time or you don't have the funds to have it done, what you can do, and as the owner of the business, is call a few of your customers and ask some common questions. What I can do is I can post on my blog some common questions I use when I'm trying to do an audit with someone. But what you need to do is figure out why people are buying from you and what problems do you solve.
And again, with social media and with what we've got going on as far as online and on the internet, those comments will appear almost like it or not.
Correct.
You're going to get feedback. It's going to be out there. It's going to be online and available for people to, go to Yelp or whatever and find out about you. So this gives you a way to have a little bit of control, a little bit of say in who is answering those questions, yes?
Yes, very much so.
All right. I want to talk about one more thing, and our time is just speeding away here. Let's swing back to content. You are helping people produce good content. What is good content?
Content is one way that people are going to find you on the internet. If you write meaningful content that talks about problems that you solve, chances are there's a buyer somewhere right now looking for content to solve a problem. Content can also be in the form of images. What I learned with one company was a lot of their main influencers in a purchase were engineers. And what engineers would do is search for an image and then click on that image, and it would take them to a website, and they would know that person can make what they're looking for.
Yeah.
So you have to be strategic about your content. Create a content map. Every month I try to focus on something and try to stay consistent with it, which is difficult for a sales guy that chases every shiny object. But like lately I've been working on your value proposition. And does your value proposition resonate with your buyers today? Today is the key word.
There you go. Yes. We're speaking with Mark Roberts, Out of the Box Solutions, LLC. He's also author of Branding Backwards, the blog, NoSmokeandMirrors.com, and the book, 50 Ugly Truths About Starting Your Own Business and Why You Should Do It Anyway. Mark, people are going to want to talk to you. Do you do webinars, first of all?
I'll be happy to do whatever best serves the community. I really enjoy doing public speaking. One of my most popular ones is Sales an Art or a Science? And the answer is it depends. And I'll walk you through a workshop to make it more of a science.
Kind of both. Yeah. How do we reach you?
You can go to my blog, www.nosmokeandmirrors.com. All my contact information is there. I'm also on LinkedIn. And if there's anyone in my network that you've been wanting to meet to better serve your market, please let me know, and I'll be happy to introduce you.
And how do we get your books?
They're all free. You can download online. Branding Backwards has been downloaded over 15,000 times. The average new book, I want to say, sells about 4,000 copies. To be a bestseller, you have to sell 60,000. I was interviewed for the book Tuned In on how I helped companies turn around. That book sold 60,000 in 3 months. So I wouldn't say it was a huge success, but if anybody applied what I taught in that book and it helped their family, I'll be happy.
Awesome. Mark Roberts, thanks so much for all you're doing in our community.
Well, thank you for your time today.